Welcome back, everyone. My apologies for having to cut that file. It turned out it was too large, and so I had to interrupt it right in the middle. We returned to the values. We made it through 1 through 5, and now I want to continue and finish this section on the core values. Again, as I said, I really think this is helpful just to walk through this, even though it may be a little slow, so that you have an understanding of what we're looking at or what we're looking for in each value. Okay, value 6. Writing arts students will understand the impact evolving technologies have on the creation of written text. Right? This one you've been exposed to throughout the major. Certainly in my module, the history and materiality of writing. In Intro to Writing Arts, we talk about the fact that all writing requires a technology. Even those pencils and clay and all those old, I'm putting that in quotes, you can't see me, but there are air quotes there, old technologies or old writing forms required a technology, even though we don't normally think of it in that way. The writing in the future, writing in the future of technologies. No, future in the writing, I don't know, whatever that one is. The one that Wolf and Teston and Kopp have all taught. Apologize for not remembering that right now. That module certainly deals with technology, more recent ones, more recent technologies, I apologize. And as well, writing research and technology certainly deals with this. And the written text here, I guess if you're thinking of writing research and technology and you may have created an oral history or some sort of video compilation, that would fit into this, even though it says written text. We can be a little bit more expansive there. Sometimes writing for the workplace, depending on who teaches it. Sometimes evaluating writing, depending on who teaches it. All these courses have exposed you to evolving technologies. If you look at the questions, you'll see where people, or I can show you where people start to make, weaken their arguments here. Notice the question, first question says, how has your understanding of writing and composing changed as a result of learning new technologies? Notice it says, how has your understanding of writing and composing changed? And then how does your portfolio reflect the impact of technologies on your writing? What I often see in analysis statements for this value is that students will say something like, okay, I blogged, I tweeted, I did a Twitter of, etc., and basically just listing things. If you look at these questions, they're not about listing. They're about how your writing changes within these different environments created by the technologies. So please be aware of that when you're responding to this one. Okay, value 7. This may be the most abstract of our values and maybe the one people struggle with a lot, so you'll see a lot more bullet points here. It says that you want to show an understanding of the power of the written word and that such power requires ethical responsibilities in its application. So here in the middle, as I said, these bullets are never in order. Here's probably the most basic understanding of that, and that is, do you understand plagiarism? Do you understand when not to, or how you don't plagiarize? Do you understand when to cite, how to cite, the value of citing? But there's more than that to this. There's ethical considerations that go beyond that. As a writer, you're always going to be faced with ethical choices, as discussed here, and depending on the format, those choices may be reflected differently. So, for instance, anyone could say, the quote might be, I did not do that. And as a writer, you could say, so-and-so said, I did not, ... that is an ellipses, right? I did not, excuse me, you can say, I did, ... do that. Right? Which totally changes what the person says, makes it the exact opposite, but that is not really ethically fair to that person. So that's part of this situation as well. Notice there's discussions about authorship, right? How does authorship change in different situations? What does it mean to be an author? We were talking in class the other day about an article that had been assigned, and we said, where does this article end? Does it end with when the author stops writing, or there was actually, the article was 1.5 pages and the comments were 4 pages, so who is the author of that? And And does it stop, as I said, when the author stops writing, or are all those comments part of the article, right? Collaborative. You may have done some collaborative writing, right? Or you've definitely been in peer groups. So how does that affect the notion of authorship and being ethically responsible, right? How about creativity and originality, especially in things like creative writing? What does that mean, right? How about new media? What's the effect? So there's all sorts of ways to approach this question, although it is, as I said, a very broad question. Okay, value 8 is the one that has to do with grammar, mechanics, and usage. It says you will be familiar with the current standards and dynamic nature of grammar, mechanics, usage, and you should be able to apply them appropriately. Now here's where people get hung up on this one. That is the current standards and dynamic nature. Okay, the current standards. Do you understand in a formal way how to correctly punctuate, how to make your verbs agree, how to apply grammar rules, use the correct wording, things like that? Right? But the dynamic nature talks more about, or speaks more to the sense of, in different situations, how you may use non- or ungrammatical structures. For instance, in dialogue, you may be creating for a short story. You do not normally have the you don't normally use perfectly correct grammar. And if you did, it would probably feel very stilted to write that. So these questions down here deal with those sorts of situations, both the current and the dynamic nature of grammar, mechanics, and usage. Okay, and then the last value talks about your having knowledge of the postgraduate options available to you in the professions and or graduate studies. Again, this is one, as it says in red, you don't need to return to the pieces in your value because, the pieces in your portfolio, because this may come throughout the major. And of course, as I've said, when I say major, I mean minor, liberal studies, any of those, right? So, what do you know about what's going to happen after you get out of here? And as it says here, if you're in education, what have you learned that you can apply to your teaching profession? That is, what have you picked up in your classes that you can show to your students and use with your students? That's why the state requires a double major. They want you to gain things from the second major that you then apply in the classroom. So what have you taken away from this major that you can put in to your teaching career? Okay, so that completes the core values. We'll move on to the next section, which is a holistic rubric. And we'll just need to start the next video.